All right. Every year we start January with a clean slate. Oh, yes. And great hopes for how our lives will be even better than last year. We make resolutions to take care of ourselves and replace our bad habits with good habits. Typically, our willpower, well, speaking for myself, runs out about February, maybe before, and it's back to the same old, same old. Well, I have a guest today who claims the science of forgiveness is the key that unlocks a secret to breaking bad habits and transforming your life. That's a pretty big statement. He's a life coach and expert on the subject of forgiveness. From the Forgiveness Link, let's welcome Rob Scott.
Don, thank you very much for having me.
Good morning. I'm glad to have you. We met at the Women's Expo.
Yes, ma'am.
And at that time, your wife, Whitney, was very pregnant.
Very, very
very pregnant. And you were like a little hovering helicopter over the top of her to make sure she was all right. And baby Evelyn is in the studio making her radio debut.
Yes, ma'am.
How old is she?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Oh,
she came on Christmas.
Really? Oh, congratulations. It's the first baby.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
we're really happy. I'm really happy for you just because I got to be a little part of your story. Well, thanks for coming, Whitney. Thanks for bringing Evelyn with you. That's really so cool. She's adorable. 2 weeks. I mean, she's still, I would say she's a fresh one.
Oh, yeah.
And she's beautiful, just beautiful. Okay, I could talk about Evelyn all morning, but then I'd have to hold her and, But let's talk about why forgiveness.
Well, I mean, forgiveness is really a huge change agent for well-being. It's not just
I agree.
my words.
Yeah.
John Hopkins, the Mayo Clinic, a lot of people have been doing research, and they found that forgiveness not only helps with relationships, but also with our health. It reduces stress and anxiety, depression, lowers blood pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of physical things take place when we let go and forgive people who've wronged us.
Okay. So how do, it's
a lot to take in.
Yeah, I'm kind of tongue-tied. Let me give out the phone number, 656-8255, 656-8255, or 1-800-951-8255. We're taking your questions with Rob Scott, the Forgiveness Link, and talking about how we do forgiveness. What kinds of forgiveness?
Well, there's really two types of forgiveness. There's decisional forgiveness, which is what, everyone kind of grew up with. I choose to forgive you, and,
Sure.
We can move on. We can accomplish goals together. But then there's the emotional forgiveness. When someone wrongs you, there's emotions that take place. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's sadness. It could be a mix of a lot of different emotions. But that type of forgiveness, the emotional forgiveness, where you're forgiving yourself for feeling these emotions, forgiving the person for causing you to feel these emotions, and then giving them permission to forgive you for holding on to these emotions.
Now, is this face-to-face with someone, or?
It doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. See, because if this person has passed, which frequently happens,
Yep.
How does that work?
Well, you're really going back to the point where you had contention, where there was wrong that was done. And, as you think about that, you forgive them, realize the emotions that you're feeling, the emotions you're still holding on to. This is what I do and help coach people through is identifying those emotions and then helping them forgive themselves, forgive others, and give them permission to forgive them.
That just really, I was thinking when I was preparing for the show, I was thinking, the biggest project for me was forgiving myself. It really was.
It's one of the hardest things.
Is it? Okay, so I'm not the only one.
No. I'm right there in that boat too.
It is. And I think I've done that through prayer, through spiritual help, with mentoring, lots of good things, but I've had to work at it. It didn't just happen.
Right.
And I had to have help from my higher power. in order for that to happen. I don't think I would have been really good at it myself. I needed some spiritual help. Do you get into that at all?
There's a spiritual aspect to it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's not necessarily the focus, but
Right.
when you go through the act of forgiving, there is a spiritual component that is there, whether you acknowledge it or not. It is there. And a lot of my clients, after a forgiveness session, they will say, I feel a lot lighter.
Yeah.
And, there are other changes too that take place, but
Sure.
that is, the number one thing that people go, man, I feel a lot lighter. One client even said, I feel like I've lost 22 pounds.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing because not only that, you can think clearer, you can function. Sometimes I would find myself just sitting and not even thinking about anything in particular. And I went through some of these healing processes, and that kind of just evaporated. And it's so bizarre. I hope you're understanding what we're talking about here. We're going to continue talking with Rob Scott from the Forgiveness Link. Talking about forgiveness, it's just a great time of the year to think about. I was with my neighbor or my family, and I got so mad about this. It might be the perfect time for this show, and so I was really excited to have you here, Rob. 656-8255, 656-8255, or 1-800-951-8255. Coming back, we're going to talk about common issues that you've worked on and have testimonies for what happened. We'll be right back with more of Around the House on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome back to Around the House. I'm Dawn Steimer, and we are talking about forgiveness. What an appropriate thing to talk about at the 1st of January. If we want to feel better and have better relationships, which is the key to a wonderful, satisfying life, many of the keys, but obviously forgiveness is a big part of that. So common issues that have been worked on.
Well, one of my favorites is anger.
Oh, that's not my favorite. No, I'm just kidding.
The reason is one of my favorites is because I was a very angry person.
Really? If you could see his calm demeanor.
Yeah, you would be very surprised that I grew up with a lot of rage. A lot of my, family dynamics, caused a lot of trauma and, anger. I'm sure no one else, deals with that at all.
Only you.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. No.
But I've gotten to work with several people on anger issues. They've come to me going, hey, can you help with anger? And, having that as a focus and finding out what's going on, what they're holding on to, and then helping them forgive the people involved that caused this anger from their past, and reframe how they show up. Has relieved them of that anger. Literally, one of my clients, after the session was done, like he described the anger that he had as this boiling water, underneath the surface of his skin. And after that session, he's like, it's gone. It's completely gone. And that's the power of forgiveness. When you really forgive.
It is. And so how do you know if you've really forgiven someone?
That's a great question. If you are able to think of the circumstance or the wrong that was done without an emotional charge, you've really forgiven them. My father used to say, if you have not forgiven someone, you've buried the hatchet with a handle sticking up. You're going to take it up and
pick it up
and use it
start
against
whacking.
them. If you can think about that person without wanting to grab that handle and start whacking at them, you've really forgiven them.
That's cool. That's a great litmus test, right? Well, let's talk about anxiety.
Anxiety. That's one that a lot of people deal with,
especially lately.
Yeah, especially with what has been going on with the pandemic and everything else. It's something that people just, their minds race, and they don't know why always. why they're
I mean, it could be PTSD, but you don't know until you break it down a little bit, right?
right. And finding the things that you're holding on to, that's causing this anxiety, and then using forgiveness, forgiving yourself for holding on to those emotions, to that anxiety, forgiving the people that caused it, forgive the pandemic for crying out loud.
I mean, there's all those steps are really important.
That reduces that anxiety and can even, eliminate it in some cases.
I could see that. I mean, I've seen it myself. I've witnessed it myself, not because of the pandemic, but just, obviously in other issues. All right. I want to give out the phone number because I want the opportunity for folks to call in. 656-8255. Excuse me, 656-8255 or 1-800-951-8255. All right. So we talked about anger. We talked about anxiety. And then there's the inevitable from anger and anxiety, depression, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people get stuck in depression, been there myself. It's hard to get out of. No.
You don't even know you're in a hole.
No, you really don't. A lot of times people are just stuck there. They're like, I can't move past this.
Yeah.
And when, someone comes to me with that, mentality, we go and find out what their body's holding on to, what's causing this. And, we identify the emotions. Depression's always one of them. But there are probably several others that, are kicking in there too, that are keeping them stuck. And
well, they're a symptom of what's really going on.
They really are.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And then what about money? That's a big button for a lot of people.
A lot of people, your relationship with money, comes from, how you're raised.
Sure.
But also how, people who of influence think about money. One of my clients, came to me with a money issue. He was making good money, but at the end of the month, had nothing to show for it. Nothing in his bank account.
Oh, that's tough. Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
So, we worked on this money issue and found out that he was trying to keep his father's approval by spending all this money. His father hates rich people. And so on a subconscious level, he was bleeding money on frivolous things. And after...
So he didn't appear wealthy?
Right. So that he could continue to win his father's love.
Wow.
And with forgiveness, we helped reframe how he showed up. And he plugged the holes in his money bucket and started accumulating money.
Wow.
Completely subconsciously.
That's an amazing story. He was just frivolously spending so that his father wouldn't know that he was doing well.
And that his father would love him.
And that his father would love him. I've had this conversation with my neighbor who is 80 years old and just the sweetest woman. She's sweet. I think she's sweet. She's very direct. But I dearly love this woman. And we talk all the time about how much influence parents have on our lives. You're sitting here with Evelyn and I'm, like you don't know this, but it's amazing. And it carries on through your whole life. But if you can forgive, you can not rewrite the history of it, but let go of the emotions attached to it and move forward, right?
You literally can break the cycle.
Yeah.
And the chains that have, held your family in bondage.
Exactly. And so I would invite you at some point, and I'm not an expert, you are, Rob, but to just spend some time with yourself.
Absolutely.
And ask yourself, who do you need to forgive? And you'll be surprised who pops up. I was. All right, 656-8255, 656-8255. This is a good time to call and talk to Rob. The next segment, he's going to talk about his own experience and what changed his life and how he got here. And I think it's going to be very powerful. We're looking for your questions and your stories at 656-8255 when we return with more of Around the House on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Good morning, Happy New Year, and welcome back. I'm Dawn Steimer. This is Around the House on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Just a short announcement here. My buddy Dave Folk called in and let us know that there is a power pole down on Winston Road near the mall, and Kingston Pike is closed down in that area. So if you are traveling in the Kingston Pike, Winston Road area, you want to be very careful because there is a power line down there. And I would just try to avoid that area in general for probably, at least the next couple hours, if not longer. Okay, if you're just tuning in, Rob Scott is with me. Rob has a business called The Forgiveness Link. And as life would have it, the website is theforgivenesslink.com. Theforgivenesslink.com.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So what is the Forgiveness Link and how did you get started?
So the Forgiveness Link was born from really my life-changing experience back in January of 2020, right before the pandemic hit and everything got started. Yep.
Interesting.
I went to a conference to learn about, this forgiveness technique that I use to help other people. And so happens I got to be the demo dummy for chronic pain. Because forgiveness doesn't just help with, the relationship stuff. It can actually help with chronic pain as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I had a pain in my back that no doctor, chiropractor, massage therapist, or acupuncturist around the world could touch, because I did some mission work in South Korea and in Russia and was trying to figure out how to fix this.
Yeah.
Turns out it was an emotional deal. Now, I was holding on to anger, frustration, abandonment, and disassociation from when my parents announced that they were getting a divorce when I was 8. And after that demo session, that pain went away just like that.
Wow.
It hasn't come back.
It hasn't come back.
Hasn't come back. And my wife will attest, she's not walking on eggshells like she used to. Like
She's actually nodding and smiling at me right now, so she is attesting to that.
Like I said, I was an angry person, and still working on things as well.
Of course, it's a life journey.
I'm no longer a high-functioning, angry 8-year-old robot anymore.
Yeah.
And
see, we get stuck at those stages, and we're acting out of those stages. We call them the littles. They're the little things inside that are chatting at us all the time. And they disrupt our lives in so many ways.
Oh, absolutely.
You've heard a lot of it. So it changed your life.
Yep.
And what happened next?
Well, I realized this is what I was created to do. I'm Christian. I'm like, God, this fits perfectly. I feel like this is what you want me to do. If it is, make a way for me to do it. Got trained. I went through an extensive certification course, 100+ hours.
Wow.
Just in training, plus, core training retreats to work on myself to bring healing. And that.
Well, you have to go through it yourself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A PhD that I used to hang out with all the time said to me that she had to go through extensive therapy herself. I said, what? She says, yeah, you have to go through it yourself before you can do it with someone else. And I thought that makes perfect sense to me.
I mean, it's, the apprenticeship that we used to do all the time.
Yeah.
You're in the construction business.
That's how I got here, was my dad apprenticed me.
That's fantastic.
And gave me a base of knowledge that I couldn't buy.
Yeah, that's essentially what I, went through, and started the Forgiveness Link to help other people, with their journey in healing, in relationships, to chronic pains even, and I've gotten to work with people on some chronic pains too.
That's awesome, and the chronic pain thing is very real, very real, and just the fact that it's gone now is just so overwhelmingly wonderful to me that, and Whitney's sitting here nodding her head like, yeah.
Yep.
But your body keeps score.
The body keeps the score. There's actually a book with that title, and it details how your body really holds on to trauma, whether it's something really significant to something really minor, like a second grader who's really excited about sitting at their desk and the teacher moves them across the room to where they didn't want to sit. That could be really traumatic to a second grader. But you and I will go, that's no big deal.
Right. But it is to them.
And it can have an impact on them for the rest of their lives.
Really?
Because what happens is, God's created us with great defense mechanisms. When we can't...
Oh, we're good at it.
Oh, yeah. When we can't handle something, we look away, physically or, mentally. But our bodies hold on to all of our experiences and all of our perceptions. And some of those perceptions, whether they're accurate to the truth or not, are going to impact us. And, being able to find out what your body's holding on to and then dealing with it with forgiveness really is a game changer. It really helps you reframe how you show up on that. Doesn't it, mean that didn't happen, the trauma didn't take place.
Right. We're not trying to make it erase.
Right.
You won't forget it.
But you're erasing.
You're going to take the charge out of it.
Yeah.
Is what I call it.
Take the charge, erase the negative emotions, and replace them with positive emotions.
Yeah.
So that you can be empathetic, more loving, and show up feeling safe, secure, and complete with yourself and with others.
Before you even get there. So you're not dependent on someone else to make you feel good.
Right.
You're content within yourself. And that's the biggest part that I've learned is the contentment. I was terrified to live by myself, be by myself for any length of time. And I did some of the work on forgiveness, and it was shocking what happened. I didn't see it coming.
Right.
I really didn't. I didn't see it coming.
Oh, I've worked with skeptics who are like, I'm going to try this, Rob. And at the end, they're like, there's something to what you do. And they live better lives. It's just a lot of fun.
So that being a life coach is what you really are.
Forgiveness coaches.
Forgiveness coach.
Yeah, because I really coach people on how to forgive. I work with people one-on-one, and I also have a group program where I teach people how to forgive. It's forgiveness. A lot of people think, I can just forgive them, but it's really a skill set, and it takes work and practice. And I help people, do that on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I think yesterday was a rough day for me. I lost a friend that has been battling for years and with cancer, and I lost her just before I went out into my day yesterday. So I'm carrying that out of there and, asking the Lord to just bless the family. And, my heart was so sore all day as a result of that. And it took me till that evening when I could be by myself for a few minutes and just settle myself in. And even my husband must have picked up. I barely said anything. And he must have picked up on it because he knew that I found out just before I left. But he proceeded to make dinner and, put the dog on my lap and say, love your mama. It's just very sweet time.
That's
very
fantastic.
Sweet time. Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry to hear about that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm more sorry for the family. It's just,
Yeah, it's always hard.
It is. All right. 656-8255, 656-8255, or 1-800-951-8255. Taking your calls about the forgiveness link. I know you have questions. I got a billion. Come on, bring them. Last segment coming up here on Around the House on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Good morning. Actually, Happy New Year. So glad to be back in studio with you. I've missed you guys. I know that we played some best of because I heard a little bit about it that, they were laughing that it was in the spring or something. So I'm sorry about that, but I hope you had a good New Year and a great Christmas. I know we did. I'm talking with Rob Scott, but before I get to that, TDOT has been talking about a power pole down on Winston Road. So West Winston Road is closed. And Kingston Pike has a couple block lanes right near the mall at Winston Road. So you want to avoid that area. That power pole could be all kinds of things going on that you just don't want to get in the middle of. So again, that's Kingston Pike at Winston Road. A couple lanes of Kingston Pike are closed and West Winston Road is closed. I would just avoid that for the remainder of the day. If it were me, it'll take a while to move some of that. All right. Thank you for being here, Rob. This is
pleasure.
big stuff. This is big stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think I didn't give it as much weight as it really had. The effect it had on me was huge. So I would encourage anyone that is listening, but I want to talk about, how do I know if or who I need to forgive?
Well, those are great questions. And if I need to forgive someone, let's start with that one. If you think of a person and you have a rush of emotions that are negative, maybe anger, or, maybe feeling a little small, feeling, low self-esteem, like you need to shrink in. That's probably someone that you need to forgive. And that is an indication that there needs to be forgiveness to take place so that you can move on and not live with anger towards that person or feel low self-esteem when you think about them. We just celebrated the holidays, right?
That could be a big trigger.
Oh, yeah. Families can be a pain in the neck. And a lot of tension comes up. A lot of people show up as a younger version of themselves just to fall back in line with family.
With family dynamics. Yeah. And that can really set you off.
Oh, yeah.
So beware as you're thinking through your holidays. What I'm hearing you say is beware of those feelings when they happen and who you were around, what was influencing you at that moment, right?
Yeah.
Because that could be a clue.
Absolutely. And really get in the habit of taking some time in your day to reflect on those things, because a lot of people are rushed. Yeah. They don't take the time to reflect, They
just go from thing to thing to thing. And I talk to the Lord about that all the time. You know, slow me down, Lord. I'd like to complete one thing before I start another one.
That's one of my prayers as well.
All right. So what does this process look like for the listener that may be interested?
Absolutely. So it's really a 4-step process. We have a focus. Could be anger, could be anxiety, it could be a chronic pain, that has an emotional component.
Okay.
And I use muscle testing to find out if there is an emotional component that needs to be worked on. And then I use muscle testing to find out what your body is holding on to. And it's kind of like having a conversation. I find out whose emotion you're holding on to, what that emotion is, and who or what it's directed towards. Now you, my client, are going to tell me why you're showing up with that. We're going to look at what's going on with you right now.
Okay.
And see if there's an original time. Sometimes it could be, a month ago, it could be, from your childhood too. And then, once we find out that picture, again, going through the same process, we fix the emotions, because the emotions are stored on the body. And we have a technique that interferes with neuropeptides going between the brain and the organs where the emotions are stored, to neutralize them.
So there's no drugs involved.
No drugs whatsoever.
There's no hocus pocus.
Nope. It's all natural stuff, very holistic.
Yeah.
Once we, find all of the emotions and the body says, hey, there's no more emotions here, then we go through a forgiveness process. And this is where I'm coaching people on forgiveness. I'm giving them statements to help them forgive themselves, the people involved, and give the people involved permission to forgive them. From that past, original time to what's going on with them now, and, the focus itself.
So even if there's no relationship, I know forgiving my father has Alzheimer's. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
But he was just not very kind in the last few years of my relationship with him. And he's still living, but he's in Michigan. And I had to forgive him because he was pretty vicious, and he didn't know. He didn't know. But it hurts you because that's your dad or your mom or whatever. So how long do these sessions usually last?
Session usually lasts an hour.
An hour? Okay.
Not too long. Now, if you've got a lot of emotions, I had one client with 22 emotions. That lasted about 3 hours.
Wow.
And that was a lot to work through.
Okay.
But typically a session lasts an hour.
So can I ask what you charge for that?
Well, I have, packages that I work with people, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months at a time.
Okay.
And depending on what people need, I make my recommendation there. Don't take insurance, because that's usually one of the questions I get asked.
Yeah.
I don't take insurance. It's a private pay.
Okay.
But it is very effective. It's like getting a year to 10 years worth of counseling in about 10 minutes, as some people have told me.
So what kind of feedback, what other kind of feedback have you received? What kind of reactions do they give you to these processes? You can see it on their face.
Oh, they're blown away.
Their countenance.
They're
everything.
just, they go from, anger to anxiety to relief just on their face. They really feel a physical change too. Like one of my clients, we worked on a business block, and he had stomach issues and had done everything, been to all the doctors, holistic, Western medicine, everything, wasn't even taking medication for it. And he felt a physical change in his stomach, like that relief that he's not been able to find. And he was still taking medication. His mom ended up, getting really sick. And so he went to take care of her and his family for a few weeks and ran out of his medication and didn't have any issues with his stomach. So, I mean,
that's awesome.
Those are just, a few things that take place, but it's, everyone is unique in what they're dealing with.
Yes. And you have to be willing to walk into that. And it's not designed to make you feel bad about yourself. It's actually the antithesis of that, right?
Right.
It's designed to release you back into your natural self-esteem that you would have. So many of us, like the littles for me, are 5 and 13. Those are the ages of my littles.
Right.
And traumatic things happened during that time. And so I had to go back and recall that stuff.
Right.
And figure out what was going on. And the end result was, I hear people say all the time, you're so confident. Well, my confidence doesn't come from me, first of all.
Right.
And it comes a lot from the work that I've done to release some of that stuff, because everybody's got stuff.
Right.
Right.
And believe it or not, 9 times out of 10, it's not where you think it is.
Exactly.
The littles that, I've had people, who've spent 25 years in counseling on the littles on, a certain age, but what their body was holding on to came from a completely different age. And that was impacting them with chronic pain. So it's really fascinating how the body works, how God designed us.
Yeah.
And, what shows up and what needs to be forgiven. So
this is your primary business.
It is.
Okay. And I'm going to give out your office number. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. It's 865-268-9209. 268-9209. And you're here in Knoxville. And you're a new dad.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sweet Evelyn's over here. She's been almost silent
She's
the
been
whole
doing
time.
great.
So she is just beautiful. She's just like a little cherub laying there, just as peaceful and as happy. She's sleeping. All right. So what can I expect? Do I have to fill out paperwork when I come?
Yeah. So I have, emotional weight loss session where, we'll sit down, talk about what's going on, where you'd like to be and that kind of stuff. And if we...
Did you say weight loss?
Emotional weight loss.
Okay. No. I know. I was like, we got to clarify this.
Yeah. Now, emotions can impact your weight loss.
Oh, of course they do. Sure.
But, and I've worked with some people on that, but in an emotional weight loss session, just to kind of figure out what you're holding on to that you're aware of, and if it's a good fit. And if we decide to work together, then I have some more paperwork, for you to fill out.
Sure.
Just kind of get a good idea of what you're dealing with, if you're on any medications or supplements, because those impact the body as well. And I, may need to know if I'm going to be dealing with side effects of medications and that kind of stuff as well. But what your overall goals, we come up with a map of where you are, what you're wanting to deal with, and where you want to be.
Okay.
And then we come up with a plan. We work together to reach those goals.
Okay.
So that you can live a happier and healthier life.
And that's the key, right?
Absolutely.
And you won't see it coming. That's the best part. You don't see it coming. all of a sudden I think, well, I'm not triggered by that anymore. I didn't get an emotional charge because it's been forgiven. And not only did God forgive me, but I forgave myself, and I forgave whatever person I feel did something to me that hurt me. And it happens all the time, especially with family. I've noticed that, my adult children, all of a sudden are telling mom what to do and how to do it. And I'm like, you live in Seattle, you live in New Orleans. Where's all that going? Right. And so you kind of feel like there's this role reversal going on, only you don't really need that yet. And so you're kind of thinking, what? So, and those are the things that when they say something that hurts you, you've got to practice that forgiveness training. Are there steps to that?
You're recognizing when you're getting triggered. That's one of the keys to it. Then recognizing the emotions that you're feeling and using forgiveness to forgive yourself, forgive others, and give others permission to forgive you on the spot. Yeah. And then reframe how you show up. So knowing the opposite of those negative emotions, like with anger, the opposite of that is love and forgiveness and happiness. Okay. So if I'm dealing with someone, who's caused me to feel anger, I'm forgiving myself for feeling that anger and holding on to it, forgiving that person for causing me to feel it, and giving them permission to forgive me for holding on to it. And then I'm giving myself permission to let go of that anger and show up with love, forgiveness, and happiness towards this person so that I can have a good relationship with them if I want to. So, if you want to. And that's what I was going to say is that the best thing for you as an individual may be that you don't have any contact with them. You have to decide that. Absolutely. Reconciliation is your own choice. There you go. So it's forgiveness still is the best thing to do, whether you reconcile with the person or not. Forgiveness is going to benefit you. It will benefit you. It's for you. Absolutely. So I've got about 30 seconds. What do you want to leave with the listener? I would say recognizing that forgiveness is good. It's not just some nice thing to do. It does have real health ramifications. There's power. There's a lot of power in forgiveness. Absolutely. And it's all for all those natural things like joy and love that you want to feel. Look at that forgiveness link. Go to theforgivenesslink.com or call the office at 268-9209. Thank you, Rob Scott. My pleasure. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, Evelyn. Little sweet darling. Replays of Around the House are posted on our blog at masterremodelers.com, and follow Master Remodelers on Facebook for links to recent shows, tips on remodeling and home maintenance. And I want to thank my guests, Bradley Reeves from WGVX and Rob Scott, life coach with the Forgiveness Link. Next week, we'll talk with a kitchen designer and a hobby shop manager. Did you know January is National Hobby Month? Well, it is. Around the House is produced by News Talk 98.7 with guest coordination services from B Media Savvy. Thank you for listening. Happy New Year from everyone at Master Remodelers. I hope you enjoy some quality time around the house today.